Hello viewers, this is Charles and this is the next in my series Learn Programming and Game Development with Lua. In this tutorial I'm going to talk about control flow in Lua with if statements. So let's get started. I'm going to create a new file as usual and I'm going to save it into my YouTube folder, which is on my D drive. I'm going to simply call this control flow. I'll put a link in the description below to the code on GitHub. I'm going to start by introducing some concepts because that will make it easier to understand what's going on. I'm going to add a title in the form of a comment. I'm going to add a multiple line comment and I'm going to copy paste some definitions in so that you have them for reference. So in computer science, instructions refer to operations at a processor. That could be the CPU or it could be a GPU or even an NPU can perform. And these are typically things like adding two numbers together. Expressions are pieces of code that simply evaluate to a value, such as a number. An example of an expression is 6 plus 6, which of course evaluates to 12. So a statement is a line of code in Lua or any other programming language such as C, C++, Java or Rust. And that statement is broken down into instructions for the processor, that's the CPU or the GPU or the NPU, to execute. A good example of this is if we take the expression above 6 plus 6, we can turn it into a statement where we assign the value that the expression evaluates to, 12, and that's assigned to X. You'll notice that the equal symbol is referred to in programming as the assignment operator. So the next thing I'm going to do is to define a variable that's going to be used in the conditions that we're going to write. So let's put that in a comment. And we're going to call it local control flow variable. And I'm going to set it to true for the moment. Now I'm going to demonstrate the if statement which allows your code to branch. I'm just going to add a comment so you understand what each section of this code is trying to demonstrate. So I'm going to start with the simplest if statement. So an if statement starts with if, then you have the condition, which is going to be control flow variable. Then you need end after the condition. Then you start a new line. So here we will simply print something to the console. And then you need end to end it. And if we run this, we expect the output to be it is sunny today because control flow is true. So let's just show that and you can see it works. Now if we change control flow variable to false, we don't get any output. Let's undo that. So now I'm going to do a second example, but this time adding in else, which is optional. So again, I'm going to comment section, and this is going to be if, then else, end. And the first bit is the same. So this time we're going to first keep it just as it was before. But then we're going to add else. The indentation's done for me. And then we're going to say it is cloudy today. And we need to end it as before. So at the moment we expect it to output it is sunny today twice. First here and second time here. And you can see that's what happens. Now let's change it to false. So this statement will not execute because this is false. This statement won't execute because this is false, but the else statement will. So we'll get it is cloudy today and nothing else. And you can see that is what actually happens. The if statement in Lua has 3 mandatory keywords, and those you can see in the first example are if, then, and end. Else is optional and else if is optional. So why do you need else if? Well, let's have a look at another example. So let's just put this one as if, then, else if, else, and we'll call it the most complex if statement. So in this third example, I'm going to construct a menu. Let's see what that looks like. So it starts the same, but this time I'm going to test whether control flow variable is 1, and if it is, I'm going to print out you have chosen menu item 1. Then I'm going to put in the else if, and I'm going to need the condition. So here the condition will be control flow variable, and then print, and then this time it will be 2. So you have chosen menu item 2. Then I'm going to have another one for menu item 3. You have chosen and I'm going to just add the space here to just clean up the code a little bit. Now I'm going to have else. So for else I don't have a condition, and I'm going to put print you have not chosen an available menu item. And finally I need to end the whole thing. Now the important thing to notice here, the conditions in each of these if and else if statements use the equality operator. If you use single equals, you'll get an error in Lua. Let's run it and just see what happens. So at the moment we're using false. So false is not 1 or 2 or 3. The first print statement does not execute. The second one doesn't execute. The third one doesn't. So we end up cascading into the else statement, and we print out the item here. You have not chosen available menu item. Let's just show you what happens if you only put 1 equals in. So here Lua is a little bit helpful because it's identified there's an issue with this line. Other languages might simply do the assignment and then you run into trouble somewhere else. Let's put this back for now. Now I want to enhance this example by using some user input, because as it's a menu, I think it would be much better if you had the option to actually choose the menu item at runtime. So let's see how that would play out. So what I want is that the user can type in the menu item that they want. So the first thing I need to do is to create a variable to put it in, which I'm going to call input. In fact, I'm going to call it user input. And I'm going to use a function from the Lua library called read. Now IO stands for input output, and then I'm going to use the read function, and the next thing I'm going to do is to assign that to control flow variable and see what happens. And let's run it and see what happens. So we need to put in some input, so let's put in 1. And well, we don't quite get what we were expecting. And the reason is IO read takes in a string, but in the conditions here we're looking for a number. What we need to do is to change the input that we got to a number. And there's a very easy way to do that. And the easy way to do that is to simply use a function called toNumber. So I'm going to type toNumber, and then input goes in the brackets, and then I'm going to run it again. So I'm going to put in 1 again, and you can see that it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is I've just realized that I used input when I meant user input. I think I'm going to switch this to input. It's a bit less typing, and I think that will be a bit simpler to understand. Let's try again. And now it actually works. Lua was perhaps instructive. So what happens if you type in something that it can't change to a number? To demonstrate that, I think we need a bit more output. What I'm going to do now is to actually output some things so we can really see what's going on. So the first is, let's output what we actually took into input. So let's simply put you entered. Then I'm going to use the concatenation operator, and then I'm just going to output whatever went into input. And let's run that. So if we put you entered 3, less promising. Now to make the output easier to read, I'm going to simply put converting what you entered to a number gives, and then I'm going to print out control flow variable. Let's run it again, and let's put in something that should work. So let's put in 3. Let's scroll this down so we can see the whole of the code. Converting what you entered to a number gives 3. So that obviously worked. You have perhaps we should put chosen. You have chosen menu item 3. Right, so far so good. What happens if you put in though something that is not a number? Well, let's test it and find out. So I'm going to put in A. So what do you get? You get nil. Now, I mentioned in the last lecture in this series that nil was quite useful. And this is why. Because we could put a statement in here to test for nil, and then we'd explicitly handle that case. So you can see nil obviously doesn't meet these conditions, so the else picks it up. In this tutorial, we've covered everything you need to know about if statements in Lua, including the optional components else and elseif. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you did, please consider clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Have a great day.